All right, guys, so we're going to do some more reading in A Bear Named Trouble by Mary and Dane Bauer, and we are getting pretty close to the end. We are in the middle of chapter 11, and the title of chapter 11 is Trouble for Trouble. And we read the first half yesterday, so you can already kind of imagine and predict what you think the trouble will be. What kind of trouble is trouble going to get into? So think for just a minute about what happened yesterday and make your predictions. A prediction means what you think is going to happen. So what do you think is going to happen in the end of chapter 11? In the beginning, Jonathan saw the fish and game department and the TV crew pull up to the zoo. And the fish and game guy got out with a gun. He doesn't know if it's a tranquilizer gun or a real gun, but he's kind of grappling with the idea of, is this what Bear deserves or not? Maybe he's not so sure anymore that that's what he wants to happen to Bear. So the last thing that it said was, Jonathan's stomach did a slow flip-flop. Would there be blood? Would there be lots of blood? It wouldn't matter if there was, would it? Seeing Trouble die on TV would be like watching a bad guy get blasted away in a crime show. Nothing more. He had seen lots of blood on TV, lots of creatures, and even people dying, but you always knew the blood that you saw there, however red it might be, was really fake. The blood, the limp body, all of it was fake. So he's seen it on TV before, but he realizes the difference, that what he's seeing on TV is fiction. So if you see a bad guy, something happened to him in a movie or a video game, he's seen that, but that's not real. He's never actually seen it really happen. Trouble's death would be different though. It would be real, because Trouble was real. At least he would be for a little while longer. Would he still be real after the fish and game guy finished with him? Jonathan turned away from the men in the parking lot and looked down the road instead. Still no sign of the school bus. So what do you think Jonathan's going to do? Jonathan has not been one this whole book to just kind of sit back and wait. So think about if you think Jonathan's going to do something. Why had his father given that stupid bear a name? Everything would be easier if Trouble was still just the bear. Okay. Why is that? Why would it be easier for Jonathan to handle if the bear didn't have a name? For those of you that might live on a farm, you may have been told that before too. If you know that the animals that you're raising are going to ultimately be for food, you may not want to name them because then it's going to be harder when that time comes. Everything would be easier if Trouble was still just the bear. There was lots of bears out there, lots and lots, but the moment you gave one a name, even a not very friendly name like Trouble, he became the only one. There was no other Trouble. So did that mean that what happened to Trouble mattered? So is it different now that he's not just some bear out in the woods, any bear, but he's Trouble. He's a specific bear that Jonathan kind of has gotten to know. Jonathan took a deep breath, and just as he let it out, he saw the top of the yellow bus rising out of the dip in the road. He tightened his hold on his lunch bag and hunched deeper into his jacket. The bus rumbled to the stop and the door shushed open. Jonathan stared at the open door and at the metal steps climbing up into the bus, and then he stepped back. See, I'm telling you, that Jonathan, he cannot let things go, can he? Hi, Johnny. Dorothy, the driver said. Missed you yesterday. Were you sick? He said, yeah, kind of. But he didn't move from where he stood as his shoes rooted to the half-frozen ground. A new gull flew over, making a familiar sound that seemed almost like crying. Dorothy said nothing more. She just waited, her round face smiling, her arms crossed, leaning on the steering wheel as though she had all the time in the world. Jonathan took another step back. "You know," he said, holding his free hand in front of his face as though to shield himself from the force of Dorothy's smile, "I guess I'd better go back home. I think I forgot something." Is he really going back home? I think he's got an idea, got a plan, I bet. He expected the bus driver to argue, to tell him, as his mother would have, to get on the bus and quit being silly. If she had done that, no doubt he would have obeyed. He was not accustomed to ignoring orders from adults, but her voice, warm with concern, Dorothy said only, "Then how will you get to school?" "My dad," he answered quickly. "My dad will take me." And to his enormous relief and instant despair, she nodded. "Okay," she said, "if you're sure." And she whooshed the door shut again. Jonathan stood perfectly still at the edge of the empty road as the bus rattled off, leaving him alone. His breath in short gasps. He was skipping school. He had never done anything like this in his life. So do you guys know what it means to skip school? If you skip something like skipping school or skipping soccer practice, or skipping a meal, that means you miss it. You decide not to do it. So he's decided he's not going to go to school. He's skipping school. He flapped a hand at the diesel exhaust that hung in the air and turned toward the zoo entrance. He needed to talk to his father. He had to make sure Dad knew that someone from the Fish and Game was at the gate, and the TV reporter too, a gun and a camera. Dad had to be told. He wanted something done about Trouble, to have him go away and never come back, and now they were going to kill him and show the killing in the middle of everybody's dinner tonight. That wasn't what he had asked for, was it? So that's what happened. He made that phone call hoping that maybe they would just come to a report and someone would catch him and carry him off and he would be gone, but he would still be alive. But that's not what happened. So now we're back to Trouble. And remember, he had fallen asleep outside of Jake's cage. The poor little guy is still just a young bear. He misses his mom. He can't get close to Jake. He doesn't have enough food. His jaw hurts. So really, I mean, I feel bad for Trouble. Even though he killed Mama Goose, I still feel bad for him. The voices woke Trouble. They moved toward him, floating on cool morning air. First, he looked toward the enclosure that held Jake, but the older bear was still nowhere in view. Then he rose on his hind legs. Remember hind legs? We did that in parts of a horse. We talked about you've got your front legs and your hind legs. He rose on his hind legs, trying unsuccessfully to peer through the dense trees that grew on each side of the zoo path. He dropped to all fours. Where should he go? He could smell as well as hear the humans, even if they couldn't see him. Although everything in this place was permeated with the smell of humans, he could make out distinctly the fresh scent of the ones moving toward him. The smell didn't put him on edge as much as it had just a few days earlier. So that's what they were saying before, that he's growing accustomed to humans, and he's not, because he's been around them more and more, he's not as afraid of them as he used to be. So he smells them, but even the smell doesn't frighten him the way that it did before. He had grown almost accustomed to the way it clung to everything in this new territory, and accustomed too to the manner in which the disturbing smell seemed to be connected to food. So he's making that association. He used to be afraid of humans, but now he knows even when I smell humans, that usually means there's food around. So where there's people, there's food, and he's hungry. Soft food, easy to chew and to swallow. Still, he wasn't so accustomed that he was going to stay here and wait for the humans to arrive. He'd go back instead to the place where he had dug in. He was all the way inside the zoo this time, inside both fences, but he had left a tunnel behind. He could still slip out easily enough, and then there they were. He could see them, 3 tall humans, walking on their hind legs the way humans did, coming toward him. Trouble lumbered off the path and into the woods. And that is the end of our chapter. So we will find out tomorrow if they're going to catch him or not. Okay, so what I want you to do for your activity today is I want you to draw a map of what you think the zoo looks like. Remember all the parts of the zoo that we've talked about. The author has described the entrance gate. We've talked about the double fences. We have talked about the stand where Jonathan goes and gets his popcorn. You know about Jake's enclosure and some of the other animals there. So draw a map of the zoo. And where you think Trouble is, you can draw Trouble, and where he's going to escape. You can draw his route from Jake's enclosure, where he is now, and draw the route of how you think Trouble is going to get out. Okay? So draw your map, and then when we FaceTime tomorrow, you can show it to me. Okay?